Okay, welcome back everyone, back to the Service to the Sacred Summit. I'm here with Erin Rivera Merriman. Erin is a priestess and an artist and an esoteric women's health practitioner who believes in connecting with the plants and bringing the plant medicine to her community. So Erin, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I've been following your work for a while, and I've been really inspired by your work. So I wonder if you could tell everyone a little bit about what your service to the sacred looks like now, and then maybe we can get into how you got there. But what's life looking for you right now?
Well, I think that the most is the perfect question for me because I do love the story and get really into the story of how everything came to be. So to really just say what is it right now? It's like a little teaching practice for me. I think I'm most inspired and compelled to explore goddess traditions as maps. And the idea that when we're working with different goddesses, we're really accessing these blueprints for well-being, and that we can work with, lots of different practices, whatever really calls to you, if it's plants, if it's goddesses, if it's dance, if it's song, if it's food. These are all kind of pieces of my own practice that bring me into that place where I feel like there is a path and there is a way, and a way that I am uniquely designed to walk, and to just kind of bring people into an ability to focus on the blueprint that is there within them, and not be distracted. That is kind of what constitutes a spiritual life to me at this point, is that we live in the land of illusion, that we live in a time of distraction. And so what we're doing with all these practices, with all these circles, with all these conversations, is funneling people down underneath the level of illusion back into that original blueprint where well-being and harmony do already exist.
Yeah, wow. So yeah, on this summit, I described it as women who are paving the way, bringing heaven to earth. And so what I'm hearing you say is that what you're doing is, with the practices based on these traditions, you're helping people find their wellness so that they can be heaven on earth inside of themselves, and then hopefully they're pushing that on and kind of creating this wave. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, and the language of I think you said bringing heaven and earth, and for me it really occurs as bridging heaven and earth, of being that bridge, that it kind of creates this underground railroad out of consumer culture, out of patriarchy, out of the matrix, however you like to refer to it. Anytime somebody chooses to do the work to be connected to both realms, to not leave the material realm, this ascension journey, sometimes can be challenging for me in the language, because it often feels some of us are going to ascend, and if you can't hang or you can't keep up, you're just going to get left behind in the what is quickly becoming a hell realm of the third dimension. And I'm just that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel interesting to me. I'm not interested in just leaving a giant mess on planet Earth And so, yeah, this bridging heaven and earth, and that there's a sense of even bridging something more primal, like I guess I would just want to get real simple and say, like, for me, the philosophy is expand to ascend. So if you want to raise the vibration, you also have to go deeper into the shadow and deal with what's there. And that it's a movement in both directions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So thinking about, I love kind of what you were saying about how we can use the practices and the methods, the plants, the traditions to kind of get out of the matrix, out of the patriarchy. I wonder what you think about, I guess, not leaving this mess behind and like wanting to contain ourselves in our practices, like during these really intense times. But it seems like for you, there's also this way where you're bringing the plants to people and you're creating these spaces. So how can we use our gifts and our skills to actually go out there, like with action and with community, and bring people into the world that we are so lucky to have, some of us?
Well, I think that for me, there's like a little bit of a trap in thinking about how to share it, how to bring it, how to help others with it, um, and it being any level of like privilege or abundance or well-being that I have accumulated for myself at this point. That when I indulge that kind of thinking, this is just for me, but it feeds my ego.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And it colors the quality of the work that I'm doing, where people might be saying they had a good time at a circle or they got value out of a session, but I feel like I didn't really honor their soul in all of the wisdom and perfection that they already have, if I'm in a state of being like, I have something you don't. So it might sound kind of paradoxical, but when I'm most effective, looking back, when I'm most effective is when I drop the story of being the teacher or the facilitator or the medicine woman, and I show up for my clients as a child going to a play date. I'm excited to explore the mystery school that is you and learn what amazing things your soul has seen and experienced and figured out in all of your lifetimes. And I let myself be vulnerable in those spaces and not know that seems to open some kind of portal where we're both receiving like big medicine, big alchemical, like ancient things, that I later find in books. That's like, oh, this whole tradition is built around that thing that happened that one time, and accessing that. And so, the paradox or whatever is like, I can't fake it. Like, I can't intellectually talk myself into being like, I see the divinity in you, and that's what's going to make this session powerful. Like, I really have to go through a lot of my own shadow material and ego before every workshop, every session, and confront a lot of that. And so there's this purgative process that requires a lot of time, a lot of compassion for myself, a lot of self-care, food, baths, ritual, meditation. I spend a great deal of time every day in really caring for my own wounds and my own triggers and that tends to be a clearing of the way or a sweeping of the path, so that when I actually am in the present moment with another human being or a group, I'm a clear channel for us to have a shared experience of divinity together. Like we're equally creating that channel. I don't know if that answered your question enough.
It was perfect. It was really perfect. I mean, I think that's what you're talking about with being the bridge, is, really not separating yourself from the people that you're serving. And that's beautiful. That's what I crave in leaders, is that vulnerable and humble way of being. So yeah, thank you for speaking to that. Tell me a little bit about the actual service that you're doing. Tell me about your connection with the plants and why is that so important right now?
Like, are you wanting to hear more about the offerings or about the philosophy of why the offerings are what they are?
Yeah, we can go 1,000 different directions there. You're right. Yeah, I'll get more specific. If you can connect your work with plants and with service to creating a new world, why is it that you bring the plants to the people?
Well, that's funny. I actually feel like what I do is like now. I think I used to bring plants to people into session space, into circle space, and then I took a break from that kind of work. Something was feeling off or like it needed adjusting, and I really didn't know what it was, but I listened and I just took a break and really took care of myself and focused on my own study. And what I got was it was such a clear feeling that it didn't make any sense to invite people indoors to engender their worship of nature and teach them their place, or remind them of their place in the ecosystem. Like it just was like, well, that's the worst idea ever. Like come into this white box to learn about the glory of nature. So I really needed to work on my life and the foundations of my life to have a place where I could bring people to the plants. And that, I'm a regular person who doesn't have all the resources in the world. So that really required a lot of like prayer and deep listening and sensitive following of what doors were opening to find those relationships that were offering that and follow those. And that has led to a really beautiful business partnership with a local farm, and where we are now able to bring people regularly into this space that's not just plants, healing plants, food plants, but there does feel like there's a vortex or ley line or some kind of natural energy of magic there. And so I'm very interested in all forms of plant medicine. I do offer herbs and nutrition as part of the support that happens in the coaching work, but kava ceremony is a regular part of my offering, and I do work with sacred mushrooms in ceremony, but all of those things, they're not really like my deepest plant medicine. Like the deepest plant medicine that I feel like I can offer is bringing people to these existing sacred places where the ecosystem is thriving, and allow people to experience themselves. Like what happens when you take your sensitive mind, body, spirit instrument and you take it out of the noisy, constricting, black and white, right and wrong world, and you put it in a thriving natural ecosystem. that you might not need to work on all those problems that you're working on in therapy, or you're working on even with plant medicines or ceremonies or circle work. All those issues truly might just be a product of the environment that you find that your instrument has been placed in. So when people feel for themselves how different of a person they feel themselves to be, when they can participate in harmony, in the harmony of the natural world, I feel the life decisions and restructuring that people need to often make, it comes easily, it comes naturally. You don't necessarily need that accountability group where you're meeting every week and being like, did you do X, Y, and Z? Did you like get it together? Are you moving in the direction of fixing and bettering and empowering yourself? Like, those things happen as natural, whimsical, creative impulses when you have felt where it's all going, and you see that you already have access to the ultimate state, and you just things kind of fall away more than like you have to make great heroic strides on your own behalf.
Wow, you're saying that it's so much easier than we're making it.
Yeah, my path, I actually started out studying Buddhism, and I sat with all the different traditions of Buddhism, really looking for like which one is the one. And I sat with the Dzogchen master, Lama Surya Das, and he's really amazing. He's kind of like Will Ferrell. He makes a lot of jokes in the middle of the chanting and whatever, but it was a little esoteric for what everyone else I was around at the time was doing. We were all like, we're meditating, you know, like none of the fancy stuff. But Dzogchen really is kind of like the medicine tradition of Buddhism, where it's that different paradigm that says like you don't use the practices to like claw your way up from the bottom and like ascend to some enlightened state. We'll just do this sound bath that just gives you the vibration of the natural state, and you can just experience heaven in a body, and then everything else will kind of, then you'll want to do the practice. Then those 1,000 bows where your knees are bleeding because you're bowing 1,000 times in devotion, like when you're actually in the heavenly state of like blinding devotion, that's all you want to do is throw yourself down on the wood floor over and over again. But a lot of people see those as like penance type practices where you're like doing that and then you get this reward of like heavenly devotion, you know? So it's this like, you don't claw your way up from the bottom, you like swoop down from above. And like, that's very tantric to me. And just interesting to see how there are seeds of this other paradigm or other way of looking at things in all these different traditions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like you have done quite a lot of exploration and quite a lot of, I guess, work. I don't know if that's the right word. And so it seems like you have pulled from like a lot of different things, and you have come to a place where you are now, at least I'm sure it's always evolving. How would you say you're taking care of yourself now? Just given kind of like the turning of political atmosphere and this rise of energy that's happening.
Well, I would say that one of the blessings, because it's often spoken of the challenges of the priestess path or sacrifices of that path, but one of the blessings of that path is that you're the canary in the coal mine. Like, you get the download first, and it feels like, oh, I'm all alone dealing with this crazy hard thing that no one like believe. Everyone's like, everything's fine, and I'm like, no, like the world is falling apart. And then I actually over the summer did some really deep work with one of my mentors. Her name is Shauna Home, and she teaches ancestral foods and traditional diets. And I was able to get the message that, you know, this health in the body is really the primary condition for everything, feeling good, having a happy family, having like healthy children and relationships, doing well in your career, being creatively fulfilled, having a spiritual path, being resourced enough to be able to be active, because activism is based on, get active. Why aren't we more active? Because we're exhausted and we're sick and we're burnt out. So if you are, like, a lot of women have the reproductive issues and the urinary tract issues, it's one of the most common things. So if it feels like you are pissing razor blades every time you go to the bathroom, you're not going to be able to organize a rally. Right. And this is what I'm seeing around women who really don't understand why other women or women and men, why everyone isn't pooling together and banding together and using all of this, quote, privilege to help other people. But from my front row seat in session work with people of all colors, all sexes, all genders, all spiritual orientations, is that it's a perception of privilege. You can say, that person, you're a white male, you've been privileged in certain ways. Maybe that white male was abandoned as a baby and grew up on the street and had to overcome meth addiction and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So someone might technically be of a less commonly thought to be oppressed group, but may nevertheless have a karmic load or degree of personal suffering that you or I can never imagine. And to say to that person, you need to use your privilege to, like, organize a political group tomorrow, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, tomorrow I'm going to the hospital to get all of the blood drained and cleaned from my body by a machine because my kidneys don't clean my own blood. So coming to see this, like, the role of, like, health in the body in the whole climate of the times, and explanation for why we're not, like, able to move a little faster in getting organized and getting active, that it was just kind of like a big download, and it got really personal for me because, when you said, oh, you've done a lot of work or you've explored a lot, I always wanted to be that person who just found my teacher, found my elder female teacher, joined her group, and stayed with that group till she died, and because of my own family's relationship with chronic illness and my own path through pain, like acute chronic pain, I haven't been able to just stay somewhere or with a teaching or a tradition if it wasn't delivering. And so that sense of delivering, it was like, oh, I love these people, or I love these sounds, or these smells, and it feels really beautiful to me on the one hand, but it's not delivering the answers to the very pressing failing health of my body. And there will be no fulfilling of any missions if I don't live. So it just made me accept the fact that my path will just keep bringing me to different communities and different practices, and gleaning wisdom and alchemizing and harmonizing, and that, like, I really am on a contract with being on the left-hand path in this life.
Yes. Wow. Just on a personal note, you posting something very small on social media about your healing journey inspired me to actually start an autoimmune protocol that I really, really needed to start. So personal thank you. Yeah, that puts a lot into perspective for me. I hear a lot of passion there from you about really discerning what we're capable of. Discerning what we're capable of regarding our own health, our self-care, and how we can actually be in service to the world. So a common theme that's coming up is, being in service to the sacred is first being in service to yourself. And then, there's going to be deeper and deeper layers of how we're showing up for the world. So maybe you could say a little bit more about how important that is to you, or what your healing path has been like.
Yes, I think, well, I will say that there's kind of these constant companions in my healing path, and one has been the what has, about maybe 6 years ago been diagnosed as fibromyalgia, which is not a especially helpful diagnosis, because it just means that you've been tested for everything else that your symptoms could be, and it's not any of those. So it's this kind of mysterious thing where it's like, yes, we can test and see that you are actually in a lot of pain, but we don't know why. And we don't really have any answers. And so there's that, which I like to speak of autoimmune diseases, chronic illnesses, all chronic conditions as chronic illness allies, as the sacred obstacle. So when they talk about Ganesh and how when you do Ganesh mantra, you can remove obstacles. That's the Brahmanic teaching, is what's that god or goddess going to do for me that I want and desire. The tantric teaching, which is the other half, the full story, is Ganesh can remove the obstacles because he puts them there in the first place. So it's the sacred obstacle that says, going the wrong way, going the wrong way, going the wrong way. And we're stubborn, and we have stories of who we are and desires. And so we just keep trying to go in these directions that have nothing to do with where we're going to find our well-being and be in a place to share our dharma. Mm-hmm. And so for me, fibromyalgia is that whenever I don't listen, whenever I stray, whenever I don't respect my own boundaries, that's the really big one, and I overgive, cue the fibromyalgia as the big boulder that says, like, you're not taking a single step further in this direction until you sit down, have a meal, like leave the house and go do something that has nothing to do with work, take a bath, pursue pleasure, play, enjoy yourself, enjoy your life. And so my guidance system is very, very strict with me. It's very immediately painful if I don't tune in and see where my boundaries lie, see where the hell yes is. And there's a lot of different ways of putting this, but one of the most helpful ones for me comes from some of the like cuddle party people that are really teaching how to have boundaries and enjoy yourself. And it's, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. A maybe is a no. That has been the most powerful teaching around boundaries of all the books I've read, all the therapy, all the work I've tried to do, learning like, what does it even mean? This thing of like, I gotta have boundaries and that'll somehow make me feel better. It's fabulous. And that makes it really clear for me in the moment where I'm feeling like overwhelmed. Usually that's the cue for me, is I feel overwhelmed. And I will just tune in and say like, well, overwhelm doesn't sound like a hell yes. So I guess it's a no. And usually it's like kind of hard to translate my feelings and go, really? It's a no? But there was so much about it that seemed like it was going to be good, or that it might be good if you just force yourself or push yourself or work a little harder and then you can relax. Like, it's pretty clear to me, just like, no, it's not. That doesn't sound like a hell yes either.
That's so good. That's so good. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like with all of this pressure, with all of this energy rising, it's there's maybe one voice saying go, 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 go. And really what that's doing is digging us deeper into a hole of things like adrenal fatigue and overwhelm, and really not being able to make it a marathon, right? If we're sprinting towards whatever we're hearing that pressure about.
What you just said, you just like distilled it all, like the whole first half of my life, all the service or healing or sharing with others, everything was this I had such a sense of burning urgency. I'm a quadruple Aries, just such impatience to see the changes in the world and experience the changes that I needed in terms of, like equality and,
Yeah.
just compassion for all beings. And that over the summer with my mentor Shauna was when we shifted a big piece where I actually am able to slow down a little bit. And even people be like, oh, we're pushing this boulder up the hill, we need everyone right now to push this boulder, and be like, I see that the boulder needs to get over the hill, but I'm having a back spasm right now and I can't move, so I'm not going to be of service to your team, and I might make it so the boulder goes off the edge. I might actually like make things much worse by bringing the energy that I'm in right now. So I'm going to take 2 days and take care of myself, and then see if everyone's still pushing that particular boulder or a different one, or I'll catch up with you later. And so with a lot of my clients, that's the mythology that I'm working with right now, is the marathon. Pace yourself to do this till you die. Like, that's what it's going to look like. That's what's going to take. And so then find the things that you could do continuously for 18 hours a day until you die and be happy. And that is how you're going to serve.
Wow. Prepare yourself to do this until you die.
Yeah, so if that feels overwhelming, you're probably not working in a modality or arena that is actually aligned with your divine purpose and your wisdom and your what you want to be learning. Mm-hmm. And that's like the martyr's way. And like a lot, there is a lot of that in the identity of being an activist, because I do believe that we all have some area of our life in which we're active, but someone might not fly to the Women's March in Washington because they are super committed to sitting with their grandmother until she dies, and that might be a year, and they're going to show up and give somebody a dignified end of life experience in a world that doesn't do that. That's highly radical. That's highly activist. So we have to find the ways that we're like, I am in my place. I am standing my ground in my place. And by doing this, reality reconfigures around your gifts or your visions.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm hearing from this is that, well, what I'm taking from it personally, because I believe that people will hear it differently as they need to. How I'm reflecting on this is that no act of love is really unradical. So whether that's self-care or, like you said, sitting with your grandmother, like everything is, a lot of things are really, really messed up. And so it's even those actions of like saying no, when it's a maybe, it's a no. And when you're needing to do these things that are grounded and that are true for you, even if it doesn't seem like it's the most potent for other people looking from the outside in. That's what I really got from that. Thank you.
So I tend to speak in a fairly circular way, but to kind of make sure that I cycle back around to answer the question of like what it is that I'm actually doing. I am deeply immersed in the GAPS protocol, which stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome, and it's an ancestral foods-based diet for healing a compromised intestinal lining. And in my understanding, we all have a compromised intestinal lining. That is, if you grow up anywhere in the developed world, that is what the contemporary diet creates, is a compromise that then makes it so that your immune system can't function as it's supposed to, your endocrine system can't function as it's supposed to. And so what I see from the old way, the sort of pushing and striving way, is adrenal burnout, and that this actually begins in the gut, in the intestinal lining, and in the communications between the brain and the intestinal lining. And so I'm spending probably 3 times as much time in the kitchen and 3 times as much money on my food and preparing my food as I was a year ago. And it has been very challenging for me. I was very much in that kind of warrior diet of like, figure out something that's kind of healthy and the cheapest, healthiest thing that like takes up the least amount of your time, so that you can just be like on the battlefield doing the work as much of the day as possible. And that it's just completely reoriented me. And now my teaching really feels like going out onto the battlefield at night when people are in the camps and finding the worst one, the people who are like really dying in the trenches, and being like, come with me over here, I'm gonna bathe you and give you a good meal, and when you're ready you can go right back to whatever it is that you are so passionately working on, but you are no longer of service to the mission if your body and is compromised, because it compromises your thinking, and then you're not able to really come from love or come from creativity or have their full energy available to creative problem solving. You know? So
Wow, thank you so much. I think this is really important for a lot of people. Thank you, really. So yeah, we covered quite a lot here, and I think we went right exactly where we needed to go. So I wonder if you have any message, whether, whoever it is that's listening, whether it's women or men, and they're kind of either struggling with their health and on that balance of wanting to be a part of the solution. What is your message, or what is your prayer for people listening?
What's really coming forward, I'll try not to overthink it or even get into a lot of story about what I mean. It's really coming forward that wants to come out is come home. Just come home. You can always come home. There's never a better time. We're always right here for you. Warm blankets, delicious foods. Just, just come home.
Thank you, Erin. It's beautiful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for your truth. Thank you for your healing. Thank you for welcoming us home. It really means a lot.
Nice to talk with you.
Yeah. How can we support you? How can we find what you're up to with your offerings? Where can we go?
Well, we recently just started a podcast called Starseed Survival Guide. So if people go on my website, it's activeculturefamily.com, you can find the podcast page. And I have just begun to kind of go back through time and interview some of the mentors and guides over the last 10 years and kind of reconstruct my journey and show people some different places where they can go for guidance. And then starting in August, we're going to be embarking on a year-long initiatory apprenticeship that will bring in plants and movement, song, dance, food, different foundations of the priestess path, but really in that container that will support people in going really deep. And so that's called the Medicine Mandala Apprenticeship. It's starting in August in Descanso, California. And we'll meet once for a 3-day retreat weekend, once per season, and then meet monthly online in between. So it is really hopefully a resource for people, not just in LA or Southern California, but anyone who's feeling called to just really make that 180-degree shift and commitment to their path as a priestess.
Beautiful. Yeah, as I send this out, I'll be sure to get the more information from you about that. Hopefully the right people get connected.
Yeah, I trust that. Exactly that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for your time, Erin. Big love to you, and just deep bow and deep gratitude for your time. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day. Blessings.